Hello, and welcome to another Rant, Rave review. Today I will be ranting about Invisible Man, 2020, and Crimson Peak. Now you might think these have nothing to do with each other, but they both suffer from the same root cause, I think. They're both decent movies, and they would have been decent movies except for the endings, which are so dumb. But let me not get ahead of myself. Full spoilers for both movies. I'm going to talk about the whole thing. I'm going to talk about the twists. I'm going to talk about the ending. So yeah, full spoilers. Watch those before you watch this if you want to. You don't really have to. They're not really worth it. Okay. Let's talk about Invisible Man first. It's the one that came out most recently. It's the one I've seen most recently. It's fresh in here. So, it opens basically through visual storytelling, and I will say it's a very well-made movie. Very well made, very well shot, very well acted. I have no problems with anything in that regard. It's told, the opening scene, there's like no talking basically. We find out that the main character, I think her name is Cecilia, or C, I'll just call her C. She is the girlfriend of an abusive scientist who's a leading like researcher in optics, which is why he has an invisibility suit. She doesn't know that, of course, but she knows he's, this leading scientist. He's controlling and abusive, and she basically escapes from his big modern house compound thing, texts her sister. They've prearranged to meet up, which doesn't make any sense, because if he's that abusive and controlling, he would probably have access to her phone records. Whatever. I don't remember if it actually explains that. I don't care. It's not that big of a deal. Her sister comes up, she gets in the car, and he was awakened by this alarm. He breaks the window of the car, and they drive off. It is also established that his house also has all these alarms and cameras. That's important later. Not really. Yeah. Anyway, so, okay, that's our opening. Perfect. He's an abusive guy, and if you know anything about this movie, the whole, idea of, abusive relationships is the horror in this movie. It's about abusive relationships. That's what it's about. Okay? Okay. So then we find out that she is staying with a friend of her sister's who's a policeman, because she's terrified of even staying with her sister because she thinks that her boyfriend will find her sister and find her, and she's paranoid. She won't even go out of the house. She's terrified that it might be him. For 1 second she goes out and then she sees a jogger. She's like, oh my gosh, it's him, but it's just a jogger. So it establishes right away that she's paranoid because of what he did to her. And there's even a part where, her sister and the cop friend are, asking, what did he do to you? Did he hit you? And she's like, and, other things. And it's just okay, it's, really, scary and messed up. And what's nice about this movie, both in the dialogue and the visuals, is it makes you infer things. It tells you what happened without showing you what happened. Oh, it's also mentioned that, he wanted her to have a baby with him, but she kept taking birth control pills, and then, I think maybe she left because he found out about it, maybe? I forget. But anyway, because, she doesn't want a life with this person. She's trying to get away from him. And then her sister shows up at the house, and she's like, how could you come here? And he's like, he can't find you because he's dead, okay? We know all this from the trailers. He's dead. And then this is the part where it becomes extremely predictable, and after this scene, beat for beat, we know what's going to happen. Beat for beat. Because they go to the, I don't know if you'd call it a law firm or whatever, of the abusive boyfriend's brother, who's like, oh, he left you all this stuff in his will, all this money, as long as, you don't commit a crime, and other things, blah, 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 all this money. And you're like, okay, so the guy in the suit who's torturing her is actually the brother, and not the guy? Okay. They don't say that, but as soon as they introduce the brother, it's, extremely obvious that that's what's going on. It's the brother and not the guy. So it's not real, that's the twist, so that's the twist, but it's really not a twist because it's so obvious. Which is fine! I actually am okay with an obvious twist, because it makes sense. Now, if you've seen the movie, pretend that the second twist doesn't happen. If you've seen the movie, that twist makes sense. Well, if you haven't, whatever. The brother twist makes sense because maybe he wants to get the brother's money, and the crazy brother, being abusive and obsessed with this woman and controlling her, oh, because, like, supposedly he committed suicide because he left him. Maybe he did leave her all that money, and the brother's angry about it and wants to get it, so he wants to make the woman think she's crazy, a la Gaslight, which is a great movie, okay? That would be a fine movie. Unfortunately, the rest of the movie happens afterwards. So at this point, it's pretty much what you've seen in the trailer. Like, there's a scene, and she's all alone, and, like, there's a knife, and then he, like, turns on the gas, and, like, makes her things start. He basically gaslights her, like, the whole time. He makes her think she's crazy. He, like, pulls the sheets off her when she's sleeping. He, like, hides the boyfriend's, like, phone in the attic so she'll find it. I will say there's one creepy scene where it's when he pulls the blankets off of her and she, like, wakes up and she's, like, looking around and she, like, tries to pull the blanket, but he's, like, standing on it. You can kind of see, like, the imprint of a foot, and it's, like, creepy. But, again, it's not creepy because you know... It's creepy in a, like, from her perspective, that would be really horrifying. But it's not creepy because you, the audience, know it's, like, an invisibility suit. So it's not scary. It's not like a supernatural thing where you're like, what the frig is standing on that? You're like, oh, it's a guy in a suit, specifically his brother. Like, nothing in this movie felt really scary to me. I was just like, okay, like, that's neat. And then she, like, freaks out and, like, screams, and she's, like, sleeping in the room with the cop friend has a, like, daughter. And she freaks out. And so, like, the cop comes in and he's like, oh, you were just, like, seeing things. She's like, no, he was there. He was there. And then, okay. So this happens over and over. And again, gaslighting her more and more to, like, hiding the phone in the attic. There's a part where the one cringy thing is, like, girls, chocolate. It's not that bad. But there's a part where she's, like, on the floor crying and sobbing. Oh, sorry, this is a really rambly review. One of the things he does to gaslight her is he uses her email to email her sister and basically be like, I hate you and I want you out of my life and I wish you were dead. And so her sister, she, like, goes to talk to her sister and her sister's like, really? Like, I thought you, blah, 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 and, like, shuts the door on her. And it is established earlier that, like, she was pushing her sister away because of, like, the weird abusive boyfriend thing. So it's not completely out of left field, but it's one of those, like, manufactured conflicts that isn't that great. Anyway, so he keeps layering on the gaslighting. And then she's, like, literally lying on the floor, like, sobbing because she has no one to talk to. And the, like, totally adorable daughter, like, of the cop comes in. And she's like, oh, like, let's have, like, a girls' night. And she's like, okay. And I'm like, Hollywood producers and writers and people, like, that's not how women interact. Like, even if you're a little girl, she's not a little girl, she's, like, 17 or something. If you see your friend, like, on the floor sobbing, you're not going to be like, let's have a girls' night. Like, you're going to sit on the floor and you're going to hug your friend. And you're not going to say anything. Like, that's how women actually interact. When you're actually crying and you actually, like, need someone to, like, help you, or you want to help somebody, you just friggin' hug them and you don't say anything. You're not like, chocolate, girls' night. None of that. That's not how women are. My stars, learn, like, talk to a woman maybe someday in your life. And I'm pretty sure this was written by a woman. I don't know. Anyway, it's really friggin' unrealistic and I hate it. But again, not a big deal. Like, all these things are, like, minor, like, what would you call them? Pet peeves? They don't actually make the movie bad. The movie is okay at this point. And again, the daughter of the cop is, like, cute as a button. And it's one of those things where, on the one hand, it's good because it makes you care about the cop and his daughter. Like, they're super good people and they're helping out the thing. And the daughter wants to go to some rich university. And the main character, puts a bunch of her, like, super rich optical scientist ex-boyfriend dead funds, like, into a thing so the girl can go to college. But at the same time, the cop and the daughter are so likable that you know they're not going to get killed off. Like, there's no tension there. Like, the movie really tries later on to make you think that they're in danger. And I'm like, they're not. Like, you would not kill off these characters. Like, it's not going to happen, okay? No, there's no tension there. And again, like, that's one of the main problems why this movie would only be okay is beat for beat. You know what's going to happen. So, okay. But, back to my point about gaslighting the main character, when the little girl is She's not little, but they say little because, like, she's in danger. Anyway, she's like, let's have a girls' night in, and Cece or Cecilia, whatever her name is like, okay. And the Invisible Man, like, friggin' smacks the girl across the face, and the girl, like, thinks it's C because she's the only person in the room and, like, freaks out. And the cop dad is like, what the frig are you doing to my daughter? As you would, because, hello. So they basically, it completely isolates main character. Okay, so far so good. And then we get to the only shocking scene in the entire movie. The only shocking scene in the entire movie is, at this point, she's at the end of her rope. She's completely gaslit. She actually, I believe, she at some point breaks into the ex-boyfriend's house and finds the suit, but then is like, you know, she knows somebody else is in the house and she has to leave. But she knows that this suit can turn invisible, so she knows this is what's happening. She just assumes that the boyfriend is still alive and it's him doing it and he faked his death, which again, if you've seen the trailers, that's in the movie. She doesn't think she's crazy. She thinks that the boyfriend is alive, like, trying to, like, make her go crazy, which would have been cooler if you had the premise of him being a ghost and then it turns out it's not a ghost. It's a suit, but anyway, you'd have to not call it Invisible Man because, anyway, okay. The only shocking scene in the entire movie is, so she's at the end of her rope, but she knows that the guy has an invisibility suit. She calls up her sister, wants to meet in a public place, and is like, they're at the restaurant. And she's like, sister, like, I have something that can prove that he's alive and I'm not crazy and, like, I can prove it. And the sister's like, what is it? Because she thinks that this person is insane. And then she's like, reaction shot, which is always a good thing in horror. And it shows the main character and next to her is, like, floating a knife. And you're like, oh. And the knife just friggin' slices across the sister's neck and pop, like, he puts it in the main character's hand and she's just like, can't move because her sister just got murdered. That scene, chef's kiss. That was shocking. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I did not see that coming. And it's scary and it's sad because your sister, like, is dead and you're gonna be blamed for her death. Okay. And then we get the part where she's put in the insane asylum and nobody believes her, and obviously the guy's in the same room as her, and I think he even says, like, surprise, like, okay. So, and she's, like, chained up, she can't move. Okay, so it's scary. Again, just the concept is scary. Like, there's someone invisible and you can't fight them off. That's a scary concept. And then she does something really smart. I do like about this movie is the main character is smart, which, again, in a lot of horror movies they aren't, so it's like, good job. She is, but then it all goes downhill. Okay, before she's smart, she's talking to the brother, and, like, she's basically saying, you know, you pretend to also have been abused by him, but you're, like, on his side, I know what you're doing, and he's like, heh heh heh, that's right, like, snidely whiplash mustache, and you can either stay in here and be crazy and get convicted for killing your sister, or you can, like, agree to go back to the boyfriend and have his baby. Did I mention she's pregnant? She's pregnant. Yeah, she was pregnant because obviously he's controlling and he knows that she's taking birth control pills and was just replacing them with placebos. Duh, not a twist. So she's pregnant and he's like agreed to, like, have the baby and come back to him and we can make this all go away, which makes no sense because, like, you just killed somebody, you can't just make that go away. But at this point I was like, he's lying, right? Like, the boyfriend isn't alive, right? Like, please, he's lying, right? Like, he just wants her to sign something and he wants the money, right? I don't know. But anyway, then she does the only smart thing in the movie. No, she doesn't do the only smart thing in the movie. I'm just getting rattled. She does a cool thing. One of the, again, like, there's, like, 2 or 3 things that were really cool. The thing with the sister getting, like, the thing that she does next. Those are, like, exciting and interesting. She gets in the, she steals a pen from the brother when he's not looking, like a sharp, fancy pen. And it gets in the shower and she's like, I'm not gonna let him have the baby. I'm not gonna let him have me. And she, like, stabs into her freaking arm and starts to, like, cut her wrist. And the invisible guy, like, grabs her arm and she goes, there you are, and freaking stabs him, and it's great. I was like, chef's kiss number 2. That was actually really smart and interesting. She stabs him and his suit starts flickering, like, in and out. And an orderly comes and opens the door, and like she manages to run out of the door, but then the Invisible Man attacks the orderly, and then you have a cool scene, although again, it's cool, but again, beat for beat, we know what's going to happen, where all the different doctors and people and orderlies from the mental hospital are coming to stop. Did I mention she's in a mental hospital? Okay. It's getting away from me. She's in a mental hospital because she like killed her sister and they think she's insane. That probably would have been a good thing to say. She's in a mental hospital, and that's where the brother says that she can go away. She's chained up. Maybe I did mention this. I don't know. It's been a long weekend. I am very tired. This is like not a drunk review. This is just me, normal and sober. Anyway, so orderlies come. He kills all the orderlies. He's flickering in and out. They don't see him, but it's your very standard person escaping from some kind of supernatural entity in an insane asylum. And then it's raining. And there was a part where, like, she looked at the weather and it's, like, suggested that she planned it for that night because it's raining, but then they never really used that, and I thought they would. Like, they'd see the rain pouring off him or something invisibly, but that didn't happen. It was weird. But again, back to, like, but you can kind of tell what's going to happen is she's looking around in the rain in the parking lot, and there's an open trunk, and you're like, oh, he's under the open trunk because otherwise you'll be able to see him. She gets under the trunk, and he's like, oh, he's there, and he starts choking her. It's like, okay, we know he's there. It's not interesting. It's not interesting. And so basically what happens in the parking lot, he's basically like, oh my gosh, you better do what I want, or I'm gonna go kill your cop friend and the daughter. And he, like, runs off and steals a car to do that, and then she gets in a car to, like, drive to stop him, and you're like, okay, but, like, you're not gonna kill off the cop and the daughter. Like, you wouldn't do that. And here's the thing, it's not like, oh, I would like the movie if they did that. No, that would be repulsive. But you know that they're not going to do that because it would be repulsive. Like, you know what I mean? So you're just like, you're damned if you do or you don't. Maybe you should have, I don't know, not made them so likable, but it's like, it's not, there's no danger there. There's no tension. So anyway, he gets to the house, he starts attacking the little girl, the dad comes in, and he starts attacking the dad, like, horribly, and the little girl's, like, screaming, and again, I'm like, you wouldn't kill this father in front of his, like, teenage daughter. Like, that's not, you wouldn't do that movie. Anyway, we're supposed to think he would, apparently, and be scared, and then the chick runs in and friggin' shoots him with the gun that she got from one of the orderlies or something, or him, I don't know, there's a gun in play. She shoots him, he goes, dies, and she peels off the mask, and what a twist! It's the brother. Okay, cool. It was a predictable twist, but again, it made sense. And I was like, okay. And then there's a scene where there's a bunch of armed men, like, running through the house. And I was like, are they going to get, like, the weird invisibility equipment? Are they going to take it for the government? Is this, like, actually making this part of the weird, like, monster cinematic universe? Are you going to, what's going on? Oh, they, like, break through a door and the ex-boyfriend is alive and, like, chained up. What? And at this point, that was super unpredictable, but I was like, why? Why is this the twist? It's so stupid. I'll tell you the rest really fast because it's ridiculous. So, like, apparently, like, what everyone is supposed to think is, like, the brother was crazy and chained up the ex-boyfriend. But actually, they were working together, and he faked his own death in order to trick her into coming back to him. It's, like, overly complicated and stupid. And then the last scene of the movie, oh, and of course she knows that, like, no one is gonna believe her, so she, like, agrees to have dinner with him with a wire on her, and then they're eating, and, like, she basically gets him to be all creepy and, like, controlling, and the cop is outside listening to the wire, even though you probably wouldn't do that because, like, I feel like he's too close to the situation. Anyway, and then she, like, leaves the room to, like, go clean up from crying, and then something invisible kills the guy, and it's obviously her in the invisibility suit, and she, like, comes back on camera, changing extremely quickly, like a quick change artist, and calls 911. It's like, oh my gosh, someone killed him. Even though that's unbelievable too, because if you were on a wire with the police, you would just scream that someone killed him, or he killed himself. She made it look like he killed himself, obviously. Like, the way that his brother made her seem like she killed her sister. And then she has a suit, and she's leaving. The cop is like, because he knows what happened, and she's like, you heard it, didn't you? Like, you heard what he said to me? Like, he's obviously controlling and creepy. And, like, that's how it ends, and it's really stupid. I'm sorry, the twist is so freaking stupid. It's such a dumb twist. But the reason I'm convinced that they threw in that twist in the last, like, 20 minutes of the movie was you had to, like, have girl power, and you had to have her kill, like, her abuser using his own methods. And you had to have a cop hear it. And it's like, that's so stupid. And it's especially stupid because there's one line. Again, it's granted it's after the twist, but it perfectly sums up what should have been the end of the movie. Where, it's basically like, after the brother has been killed, she killed the brother, by the way, like, she did shoot him. So she did kill an abusive, horrible person, but I guess that didn't count, because, yeah. She shot him, and she's worried that the now alive, stupidly brother is going to come back and hunt her down, and the policeman's, like, telling her, like, no, he can't hurt you, it's okay, you're safe. And she says this line, she basically says, the brother, you know, did everything with the invisibility suit, but whatever the boyfriend's name, like, he did everything before that. And I was like, that's where you end your movie. You don't have him be alive, you have him be dead, and then you say, like, you know, have the cop say something like it was all the brother, and then have her say he did everything with the invisibility suit, but boyfriend did everything before that. Because that is your anti-abuser message. That's the idea of, you don't need a magic invisibility suit to ruin someone's life and completely gaslight them and completely isolate them. Because she already experienced all of those horrors before there was a guy in a invisibility suit. The boyfriend cut her off from her family. The boyfriend made her think she was going crazy. The boyfriend gaslit her. Like, if you just end on that note of, like, yeah, he did all those things, but the boyfriend did them first, like, that would have been a chef's kiss. That would have been a chef's kiss. Even with the stupid, lame, predictable twist of the brother, it would have been really good. It would have been a good movie. I would have been like, 10 out of 10. Nice ending line. But you had to ruin it with a stupid ending. Like, really? So dumb. Not a good twist. Not believable. It made no sense. It was overly complicated. Like, no. Nope. It dropped the movie from, like, what would have been a 3 out of 5 to a 1 out of 5. Not really. It's probably still like a 3 out of 5. But it would have been a 4 out of 5, maybe. I don't know. It wasn't scary. But it was decent. But then it wasn't. So, that's why it's a rant. Alright. Now on to Crimson Peak, which is a movie that I don't think, like, anyone saw except for me, but I saw it. And I have strong feelings about it. So, I was so excited about this movie because it looked friggin' awesome. For those of you who've never heard of this movie or who, like, don't remember it, it's basically there's this, it's like an homage to, like, old-timey gothic horror, and I submit Hound of the Baskervilles, which I will explain, which I don't think counts as gothic horror, but anyway. So, there's this chick, and she wants to be a writer, and her papa is a good, like, papa who wants her to be a writer, even though all the other people are like, oh, woman writer. Even though, like, Jane Austen was a thing. Anyway, okay, whatever. It's not that cringy. But she meets, and her, like, father's rich or something. I don't remember. I think her father's rich. And she meets, at some point, this, like, super handsome, who's the guy who plays Loki? Whoever that dude is. I think it's him, right? Tom Hiddleston? That sounds right. Anyway, she meets him, and he's very, like, beautiful and dapper because everyone was back in the day when they dressed like that. And his, like, sister, who's this, like, very, like, obviously evil chick. Like, obviously she's not supposed to be, but clearly she is. There's also symbolism up the wazoo in this movie. Like, the sister always is, like, kind of, moths are her thing. Like, moths and moth-eatenness and decay. Okay. This is a movie I wanted to like. Like, Invisible Man I thought was going to be a fun thriller, and it was okay and not thrilling. This movie, I was like, I am all over this aesthetic and this premise. Like, and then it betrayed me. So, okay, so moths, etc. are her thing, and, like, they're very clearly evil. And it's like a whirlwind romance between the main character, girl, and Tom Hiddleston. I think, I'm gonna say, like, Loki, because I had to look this up. I'll feel so bad if this is, like, not the same actor. He's like, I'm not, but thanks for playing. I'm 99% sure that I am correct. Anyway, I'll keep talking. So it's a whirlwind romance. They get married, but then, someone, like, sneaks up on the father and, like, bashes his head into a sink, like, horribly, bloodily. And it's obviously the sister. Like, it's obviously not Loki / Tom Hiddleston. Poor actors. I'm not good with names, so, like, let's pray it's him. No, it has to be him. Maybe. Yee! I'm right. I'm so right. Okay. Tom Hiddleston then. It's obviously that he's not the murderer. He's obviously, like, the controlled person in this crime duo of, like, whatever the sister is and Tom Hiddleston, okay? Obviously. And so the girl is sad, but it's their honeymoon, so they go to Crimson Peak. And Crimson Peak is the palatial manor of these, like, two rich people. And again, like, how they met is like, oh, like, we're, like, two rich people, and we have I forget if they say they have, like, they basically export clay. It's this blood red clay that's on their land, and that's what they sell. And so here's where it gets, like, cool and creepy, where I think it's snowing? Yeah, it's, like, snowing, but the ground is, like, covered in, like, blood red stains. And they're like, oh, that's, like, the soil. The soil is just that color. And then you see the house, and it's, like, decaying and not well kept up and decrepit. I don't even think there's any servants. I think it's just Tom Hiddleston and the sister. And they go in, and, like, the walls are, like, dripping with this blood red mud. And it's so over the top, and I'm totally there for it. It could be absurd, but I'm like, nah, it's so good. It's ridiculous. Like, the whole thing is basically blood red. And again, it's like, this is, like, what makes Crimson Peak famous, because of our amazing red clay. This is so wonderful, and this is where our wealth comes from. And then you're like, but, like, your house is made of, like, garbage. Like, that's the thing. It's, like, they're very wealthy, but it's super old wealth, and you can tell right away that it's not, like, no. And so, like, the girl is, like, you know, sad about her dad being dead, but, like, is like, hey, like, hubby, and he's like, oh no, I don't want to, like, pressure you to, like, have sex with me when your father's dead, and you're like, okay. And throughout the whole movie, it's, like, super weird, because, like, he won't, like, sleep with her, even though they're married, so it's like, and you're like, obviously, like, Tom Hiddleston and the sister are, like, actually a couple, like, secretly, okay, like, and if you've read Hound of the Baskervilles, this is the first Hound of the Baskervilles thing, I was like, oh, it's the, wait, I don't want to give anything away yet. I mean, I will, but I'm forgetting in Hound of the Baskervilles. I think that they're pretending to be brother and sister, but they're actually not. They're actually married. Yeah, I think in Hound of the Baskervilles, they're claiming to be brother and sister, but they're actually married, or maybe the reverse, where they're saying that they're married, but they're actually brother and sister. I don't remember, but it's, like, that kind of a thing. This weird house, this weird couple, they're not who they say they are. Okay. So, like, that's what you're thinking as the audience. You're like, oh, they're clearly a couple, and they kill rich women to take their money, which is what they are doing. They are killing rich women to take their money, because, secretly, no one is buying this blood red, like, soil. It's stupid. Like, no one actually wants it. So then we find out more about the house. So, and of course, if you don't know, this is actually a ghost story movie. I forgot to mention the opening scene is about the daughter mentions that she can see ghosts, or saw one once, and it's like her dead mother came and it was like, avoid Crimson Peak. So you're like, really? Like, that scene was unnecessary. My mind literally wiped it out until literally now. You didn't have to do that, because it's super obvious that this place is friggin' haunted right away. So I forget exactly what it is. And what I kind of like about this movie is it shows the ghosts, like, right up front. The horror is not supposed to come from the ghosts. The ghosts are scary. So there's a part where you see, how does it all work? Oh, okay. So, like, there's several ghosts that show up throughout. And at this point, I'm not going to go in order because I don't remember it. I saw it like 5 years ago when it came out. But you see several ghosts. You see a ghost in a bathtub with its head, like, bashed in. And by ghost, it's basically like a skeleton, more or less. Like, she sees these images. She sees a ghost with its, like, in the bathtub with its, like, skeleton, like, face bashed in. There's a part where she sees a skeleton ghost girl, like, carrying a baby, like, crying. And I believe there's a part where she goes down to the basement, and the basement has these giant blood red vats of clay, and it's super friggin' creepy. And I think she sees a ghost, like, in one of those vats, like, or emerging out of it or something. So it's obvious there are at least 4 separate ghosts, 3 women and a baby. So you're like, these are probably the ladies who, like, got murdered and who were, like, this chick before. It's kind of like Bluebeard. Again, this movie could have been so good. It's like an homage to all the, like, gothic horror and Bluebeard type stories, and also Hound of the Baskervilles and all kinds of stuff. So yeah, it's very, like, interesting. Oh, I should also mention that there was, like, maybe a boyfriend that's a chick. Not a boyfriend, but, like, a suitor who wanted to marry her, but she didn't marry. He shows up later. Yeah. Anyway, so the basement is important, or at least it should be. So there's these vats of blood red mud, and there's this, like, chompy, like, digging machine. It's above ground, we find out, too. It basically sits next to the manor, and it, like, digs. And it digs the blood red mud, and it scoops it down, and then it delivers it to these vats of clay. And the sister is, like, convinced, even though, and again, this is, like, something that we learn. We learn that the sister is, like, convinced that this is a profitable business. And we kind of get the idea that, like, Tom Hiddleston is like, no, like, it's not a profitable business, like, but I do whatever my sister wants. And so, and okay, so, like, we keep learning more and more stuff, and we keep hearing about, like, they, like, grew up in the house together, and, like, they love the land, or at least the sister's obsessed with Crimson Peak and the land, and obsessed, and she knows that, like, it'll be profitable, and it's part of her, like, makeup, okay? And then the shocking twist is that Tom Hiddleston and the sister are really siblings. Ew! And it's like friggin' incest. And so that I was like, oh, twist. Like, that's a good twist. It's really creepy and repulsive, but, like, yeah, okay. And so it's creepy because the sister is, like, totally controlling of Tom Hiddleston, and, like, it's friggin' incest, and it always was. Like, and then I forget exactly how they reveal it. If the ghosts reveal it, or if people reveal it, but basically it's like, no, like, since, like, they were, like, young, she's been, like, a complete, like, controlling weirdo. I think they killed the mom, too. Yeah, I think she, like, killed her mom, and that's the lady in the bathtub, because the mom was, like, repulsed by this, and was like, my daughter's a friggin', like, psychopath. Yeah, so they killed the mom. And the baby, oh, the ghost baby is, like, their baby, and you're like, oh, like, yeah, so it's just like, oh my gosh, okay, so that's, like, another layer of horror. So just like how, the Invisible Man had abusive relationships as the horror, even though it's, like, Invisible Man, this story has, like, incest and stagnation as its horror, and you're like, oh, like, I want to like this movie. Please let me like this movie. Please let me like this movie. No, no dice. Okay, so at some point, I forget exactly what happens, but I think that oh, Tom Hiddleston actually is in love with this main character chick. Like, he actually, like, because, you know, he was fine killing off the other, like, myriad women that he married and then murdered for their money, but he doesn't want to do that to this one because he actually is in love with her, and he, at some point, I believe, tries to protect her and gets in the way of the sister, and she friggin', like, stabs him in the eye. And it's, like, super gory and ridiculous for no reason. And so he dies, and she's, like, freaking out, like, you made me kill him, rah! And there's this, like, chase through the mansion or something, I don't remember. So main character girl is, like, running, and main character, like, evil villain sister is, like, chasing her, and they're running all over the friggin' place. And, oh! Before this is when, like, the suitor comes and, like, I think that Tom Hiddleston stabs him. How does it work? He basically has Tom Hiddleston stab him in a place that won't kill him or something. Like, because he's a doctor, and I was like, this is... I forget. That part somehow reminded me of Hound of the Baskervilles, and I don't remember why. Oh, the other thing is, like, women weeping that happens in Hound of the Baskervilles. You should just read that story, but I don't know why. But at the time, 5 years ago, it reminded me of that. I don't really remember why now, other than the weird brother-sister thing. There's a suitor. He's not important. He lives... Okay. Anyway, sister chasing main character girl through the mansion. Main character girl is running. Ghosts are not that helpful. I think that they try to maybe stop the girl, but whatever. Stop the villain, sister. Whatever. Okay, so at this point, they go down to the basement, and there's the blood red mud things. And the girl, like, is climbing up the weird stompy crushy machine to get out onto the thing to try and escape. And the sister is, like, chasing her. And I forget what happens, but basically, like, forget if Tom Hiddleston's ghost. He does appear, and I forget what, he doesn't do much of anything. But here's what should have happened, okay? Like, whether or not his ghost ever appears again, regardless. I mean, he can do stuff he wants. Here's what should have happened, okay? It's Chekhov's gun. You know what Chekhov's gun is? It's the thing where, in a play, if you have a gun on stage, you have to fire it by the third act. Because you're just like... And originally, it's literally just because that's how you set up the stage. You're not going to bother putting a gun on stage if you're not going to actually use it. Well, okay, this is Chekhov's stompy crushy mud machine, where you're not going to put a stompy crushy mud machine that stomps and crushes blood red mud in your movie unless you're going to use it, right? Here's what should have happened. What should have happened is whether Tom Hiddleston ghost does it or whether the main character does it, and or somebody should push the freaking sister villain into the blood red stompy crushy machine, and she should get freaking crushed, and her blood should, like, mix with the blood red clay because she's obsessed with the house and Crimson Peak and obsessed with their lineage and her bloodline and the clay. And it's like chef's kiss of she gets her friggin' comeuppance and she'll always be a part of the house. And then you can have a scene, because there is a scene at the end of the movie, where her ghost is in the house, like, playing piano. And you'd be like, ah, like, her ghost is there because she's, like, crushed, literally crushed into the clay. And the blood of the clay is mixed with the blood of her, and it's a blood. That's what should happen, right? That's why you put the stompy crushy machine in the movie? Just kidding. It's way better if the main character takes a shovel and hits the villain on the back of the head and says something about, like, girl power or something stupid. I don't know what she actually says, but it might as well have her been saying girl power. Like, it was clearly to be like, oh, she has to do, like, something physical and show that, like, she can beat her. And I was like, this is so stupid! And she could have beaten her by shoving her into the stompy crushy blood machine. I'm so mad about that movie, and it's been 5 years since I saw it because I wanted to like it so much, and it's so not good. Again, in retrospect, it wouldn't have been a great, great, great movie even if she had ended it that way. But it wouldn't have been awful. But because it ended with a stupid shovel to the back of the head, I was like, that is so... There are these things in writing called, I think they're called build-ups and payoffs? Something in payoffs. And there's no payoff in this movie. It's like you have all this symbolism about moths, and her symbol is the moth, and it's moth-eaten, and her friggin' house is full of decay, and she's obsessed with this clay, and it's like her family is decaying, and stagnation, and literal incest. That's all there, that beautiful symbolic package, and you can literally have her being crushed by the thing that she's so in love with, the friggin' machine that's supposedly, like, bring them riches to their family, and the clay, and the blood. Just kidding! She gets hit in the back of the head with a shovel. How is that satisfying? Who in the writer's room was like, this is a good idea? Like, it's not good. Like, it's not good. Don't do it. It's so dumb. The twist in Invisible Man is not nearly as offensive. Probably because there wasn't as much there to ruin, but also because, like, at least it still went with the theme, even though it was hitting you over the head with it, not with a shovel. It was stupid to have the boyfriend still be alive, but at least it was like, he's an abusive jerk. He's controlling. She beats him. Like, it was stupid and really over the top, but it went with the theme. But in Crimson Peak, it was just like, hits her over the head. I wish I could remember what stupid thing she says. It's so dumb and not interesting. And I'm like, that director. Is it Guillermo del Toro? I think it is. I have issues with him. But that's a rant for another day. I think I actually did rant about him already, didn't I? Oh, Troll Hunters. Like, I should probably put a little, like, window. Go see that thing. I don't know. Anyway! Go watch other rants that I've done. The end. This is really long. I'm sorry. I have strong feelings. Bye-bye.